Hey everybody, yet another video about kind of final optimization and some of the considerations, which is I want to talk a little bit about cartridge construction, what's inside, what matters, and how that works. As you can see, I took the head shell off of my kind of tone arm. You know, on most of them, there's a pretty standard connection. You can simply twist this and it kind of pops off. Be careful not to drop it because you will probably damage the needle or the cantilever itself. And so I want to talk a little bit about this. First and foremost, and again, this is where how the signal travels. If you just think about what touches the record and how that works, this is where you can spend, again, the biggest bang for your buck, being the cartridge. And so, you know, I'm not sure I can quite zoom in. And so if you kind of focus on the cartridge itself, at the top here, you see a tiny little tip. And so that tip is what touches the record. That's what reads the grooves. That's what reads the sound. The stylus, or the tip, right, it comes in all kinds of different shapes. And so I'll try to overlay some shapes and what they might look like in this video. But the first and most common one is a spherical shape or a conical shape. It's basic, forgiving as far as, you know, how it reads the record, but it also has far less detail. And so I'll show a picture of what a spherical stylus looks like. The next one is kind of elliptical. That's, again, a different shape of the diamond or a different shape of the tip, and that creates better contact with the groove, adds a lot more detail, again, sound improvement overall. And then you have what I have, which is either called a line contact or shibata or a micro ridge. It's all the same name for it. And they tend to be more high end. They trace much deeper in the grooves of the record and create far better sound. And so the shape of the stylus, the tip of your cartridge, has a huge impact on clarity, on the tracking, on the wear on your records, things like that. Now, the second piece is really, you know, as you can see, you know, where the stylus, the tip connects to, right? And folks call that the cantilever. The cantilever is what holds it in place, and that transmits the vibrations to either coils or magnets, right? And so as it kind of moves up and down in the groove, that is what ultimately decides that. Again, the material matters, right? Most common, like the 2M orthophone red, is aluminum. It's affordable, it's cheaper to make, a decent performance, but it also isn't as strong, right? You can also have boron or beryllium or sapphire, much stiffer, and that particularly improves faster response, more accuracy, you know, kind of impacts how it moves, and the stiffness of it is important. And then you go all the way up to carbon or ruby if you wanted to. Mostly those are used for tuning, kind of sound character and things like that. So a stiff, low mass, you know, meaning lightweight cantilever really improves kind of tracking and detail. Now, within the cartridge, which is hard to see here, is the actual suspension. You can see it a little bit. See where that needle sticks out? That is the suspension itself. And so suspension is, that's what moves around while the cantilever kind of stays centered in a groove. Typically, they're made of rubber or a certain kind of compound. Now, if you find an old needle, right, I don't know, in a garage sale or something, that's usually what goes bad, right? The rubber just deteriorates like any kind of rubber. And so it dries out or it hardens, and that really distorts the sound or impacts things. And so, you know, the suspension is an important piece, but the longer or the older the cartridge, you know, the over time that will impact that. As I mentioned in a previous video, there's different types of cartridges, right? There's the moving magnet, or folks call MM. It's way easier to produce. Has sometimes a replaceable stylus. You can literally pop it off, swap it out, and put a new one in. But also has higher output. And so, you know, most systems can support that. And so MM is what a lot of folks use. It's probably the most common thing you can find. And then as I have, as I mentioned, MC, or moving coil. It's more refined, has lower output. And you know, usually the stylus cannot be replaced, but there are a bunch of repair services out there that could fix it for you. And if you have a stylus that costs $3,000, fixing it for $500 or updating the stylus, you know, is worth it for some folks. And so, but the construction is more delicate. They often use higher precision and better materials, again, for the sound. But with a moving coil, you need to make sure your audio equipment can handle it. And as I mentioned in a previous video, I've optimized mine or set it. There's a switch I can set to a moving coil and then actually reduce the resistance on that and what that looks like. The housing of the cartridge itself is also important. In my case, that's really the kind of the black plastic piece here. You can see in mine, this one has been modified, and so there's a piece cut away, which impacts resonance and actually improves the overall sound. Now I can't send it back to Denon because we cut into the housing, but it definitely had an impact on that. And so usually they're made out of plastic. Now higher end cartridges, or carts as folks call them, $5,000-$10,000 cartridges, yes, they do exist, can be made out of precious metals, out of wood, out of resin, and all that is done to control the essentially the vibrations, the sound quality, and really the tone itself to try to optimize that. And then lastly is kind of now the internal wiring. And so again, hard to see when you open this up. There are tiny little wires. I mean, they look like strands of hair that carry the signal. And again, depending on the internal wiring of the cartridge, the higher quality, like, going from copper to say silver or even gold plated in some cases, rare cases, really improves the sound, right? And so, it has precision winding, the material itself, the purity of it affects the signal, and channel separation. So there's just a lot going on within the cartridge itself. One thing I should mention here, I kind of have stock wires here right now in my head shell. I'm waiting on silver cartridges, and so they're actually in a specific twisted pattern with gold lugs, because what I want to do is I have an amazing cartridge, and I feel like the copper might be affecting the sound. So I'm improving this particular set of wiring through silver wiring. Very easy to do, like 10 bucks off of eBay. And so I'm swapping this out, and so that the signal that ultimately comes out and goes through my tone arm will be even better. And that's my goal, to kind of, again, optimize my sound. Now, of course, the wiring within my tone arm itself has an impact as well, which now you can argue for, okay, now it's time for upgrading my turntable, but not there yet. And, it all depends on budget. So a lot going on. I hope this was helpful and hope this was insightful. Again, leave me some comments, your thoughts. If I said something wrong, please subscribe to my channel, and love to hear what you think. Thanks so much.